good morning, everyone. How is everyone doing today? How are you guys doing today? Hey, this is Gregory Walls coming live to you from Houston, Texas with this inspirational morning talk. For first-time listeners, I'm on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays at 8:45 a.m. That's Central Time, our time here in Texas. And you can calculate what time zone you in. But it's not a great day. It's a beautiful day. And say hi to my friends in Canada there. I know they're coming off of the Caribbean weekend, the whole Caribbean festival weekend. I know they had a good time. I see all the posts on Facebook. I hope you guys just recover and get going for this week. Glad you guys had a great time there celebrating. Hey, but what I want to talk about today is similar a guy here from the Bible, right? This is a guy. Let's look at his little story here and see how you can have everything and still have nothing, right? You can have everything and still have nothing if you're not following those laws, following God's words. You could have a whole lot of abundance and still don't enjoy life, right? And still do not enjoy life, right? So let's look at Solomon here in Ecclesiastes. Let's look at Ecclesiastes 6. 1 through 6, you can read, and we can read some other scriptures, right? Ecclesiastes. Be careful when you're reading the book of Ecclesiastes, when you quote in a lot of stuff from there, because this is coming from King Solomon, who at the end of his life was so bitter, right? He was so bitter because of how his life turned out, all because of his own disobedience, right? He was so bitter when he's talking about all this is meaningless and all this is meaningless and all of that, right? Be careful when you're reading that. You remember when you're reading the Bible, you always got to check in what context that particular stuff that we're looking at is written. This is coming from a bitter, angry man, Ecclesiastes here, after how his life turned out. So let's take a little part of what he said, and we're going to talk about it, right? So this little part here in Ecclesiastes 6, 1 through 6, hear what he said. He said, I've seen another evil under the sun, and it weighs heavily on mankind. God gives some people wealth, possessions, and honor, so that they lack nothing their hearts desire. But God does not grant them the ability to enjoy them, and strangers enjoy them instead. This is meaningless, a grievous evil, right? So he is talking about himself here. In other words, he's saying, man, God give me all this riches and all that, you know what I mean? And I can't even enjoy it, right? I can't even enjoy it, right? And this is something I want people to know. You could get a lot of stuff by evil means, or by God grant you them. But if you stop following him and you start to do the evil, you could have all that and still don't enjoy life. He can still torment you, right? So let's go on and see what he said here. This is Ecclesiastes 6, gone on to 3 now. A man may have 100 children and may live many years, yet no matter how long he lives, if he cannot enjoy his prosperity and does not receive proper burial, I say that a stillborn child is better off than he. It comes without meaning. It departs in darkness, and in darkness its name is shrouded. Though it never saw the sun or knew anything, it has more rest than does that man. Even if he lives 1,000 years twice over, or fails to enjoy his prosperity, do not all go to the same place. So Solomon is saying, man, you could have all this prosperity, you could have all these children and all of that, but he's saying, if you can enjoy it, a stillborn child is better off than you. So he's saying, look, it's better off not even born. Remember, Job had the same thing when Job lose everything. So this is a man who has everything. Tracy Hammer, good morning, good morning. And a man compared to Job, who God took everything from him, we're both saying the same thing, you know what I mean? It's just, it's better off not being born. But you see, Solomon had everything. He kind of talking about his own life here, right? He kind of talking about his own life here, right? But let's see why he ended up where he ended up, being the richest man. Because remember, King Solomon's story is being this rich man and the wisest man and all that. Yes, all that is true. But we got to realize how King Solomon's story ended off. It didn't end it off as great as it started, right? But let's look first with the advice his father gave him. His father gave him. Why this rich, powerful, wise man is so bitter right now, and all these possessions and wealth he had, he's saying he still didn't get to enjoy them, right? And that should be, don't let our lives be like Solomon. Don't let us go after these wealth and possessions and all that and forget about God. That we could end up just like him, having all of these stuff. And as he's saying, a stranger can come and enjoy them. All right. But let's see what the advice he got from his father. Right. Let's see the advice he got from his father. It's in 1 Chronicles 28, 8 through 9. It's before he go and take the throne. He said, so now I charge you, this father talking to him. So now I charge you in the sight of all Israel and of the assembly of the Lord, and in the hearing of our God, be careful to follow all the commands of the Lord your God, that you may possess this good land and pass on it and inheritance to your descendants forever. So his father telling him, look, in front of all Israel, I'm telling you, follow God's commands, and then you can get all this inheritance to pass on to your children. Just follow God's commands, right? Remember he's saying you got this inheritance to pass on to your children if you continue to follow God's commands. He said, and you, my son Solomon, acknowledge the God of your father and serve him with wholehearted devotion and with a willing mind. For the Lord searches every heart and understands every desire and every thought. If you seek him, he will be found by you. But if you forsake him, he will reject you forever. If you forsake him, he will reject you forever. Remember, that's the advice his father gave him before he got on the throne, right? I remember how he started off. I can't go into all of that. He started off by making his 1,000 burnt offerings and all that to God. And then God asked him what you want. And he said, you want the wisdom to rule his people. And then God said, okay, since you didn't ask for the life of your enemies and all that, I give you the wisdom. And you also get these riches. You'll be the richest man and all that, right? He seek God. God bless him mightily. And then, but how he end up here now? How he end up here, Clifton Mosley, good morning. How he end up here being so bitter in Ecclesiastes? How he end up here talking about this man who got all this riches and can't even enjoy it? How he end up here? But let's see how he end up here. Right? Let's look at 1 Kings 11, 9 through 13 and see. When Solomon, God tell him not to marry these foreign women and all that, and he still go on, and he had 1,700 wives, 300 concubines, and all that stuff, right? So let's see how we end up in that place where we end up. 1 Kings 11, 9 through 13. So the Lord God of Israel had appeared to Solomon 2 times and warned him not to worship foreign gods, but Solomon disobeyed and did it anyway. This made the Lord very angry, and he said to Solomon, you did what you wanted and not what I told you to do. Now I'm going to take your kingdom from you and give it to one of your officials. Not here what he's saying here, not back where he was so upset about when he's saying here that, but God does not grant them the ability to enjoy them, and strangers enjoy them instead. This is meaningless. After he's saying God has granted man all these possessions, and he still don't. Let me read it. I have seen another evil under the sun, and it weighs heavily on mankind. God gives some people wealth, possessions, and honor, so that they lack nothing their hearts desire. But God does not grant them the ability to enjoy them, and strangers enjoy them instead. This is meaningless here. God telling them here now. Remember, his father tell him, if you seek God, he gonna bless you forever. But if you forsake him, he can reject you forever, right? So this is what God telling him here now. He said, you did what you wanted and not what I told you to do. Now I'm going to take your kingdom from you and give it to one of your officials. The stranger, right? But because David was your father, you will remain king as long as you live. You will just remain the name king. But that's what he's saying. He had this title still as king, but he could enjoy his life. Even he had all those possessions, he couldn't enjoy it because God stopped him from enjoying it. He just had him as the name king because he had promised David that. I will wait until your son become king, then I will take the kingdom from him. When I do, I will still let him rule one tribe, because I have not forgotten David, my servant, and Jerusalem is my children. So he said, because of your father, I'm going to still Maxine Siabra Clark, good morning, good morning. He said, because your father can still left your son, but he just kept him with the name king, but he could not enjoy none of those possessions he had. He didn't have no peace. He didn't have nothing because he did not follow the instruction his father gave him before he took the kingship, right? So I'm saying, don't let our lives be like him. Don't let us go after all of these riches and all of that and can't enjoy it and still miserable and still people got all this and still committing suicide and you wonder why, right? So let's just look at this here and see what's the main thing and put the main things first. But let's see at the end, the very end of Ecclesiastes, what he had to admit. After he went on this whole ramp through the whole book Ecclesiastes, talking about how everything is so meaningless in life. Everything is meaningless. This is meaningless. This is meaningless, right? He went on the whole ramp. If you read the book of Ecclesiastes, I understand what I'm saying. It's written from a man who was so frustrated in the end of his life, right? Because he did not do what God asked him to do and the advice his father gave him. But here how he end off in conclusion of all of that, right? The end of Ecclesiastes, here how he ended off. This is Ecclesiastes 12, 13 through 14, and this is the message I want to give people. This is my whole ministry built on. He said, no, all has been heard. Now all has been heard. All of the ranting he went on with through the whole book of Ecclesiastes, how everything is meaningless. He said, now that I tell you guys all of this, here is the conclusion of the matter. Here is the conclusion of the matter what he realized now at the end of his life. He said, now all of this has been heard. Here is the conclusion of the matter. Fear God and keep his commandments, for this is the duty of all mankind. For God will bring every deed into judgment, including every hidden thing, whether it is good or evil. So this is a man who had everything. Well, he not lost it physically, but he couldn't enjoy it. He was so upset. But at the end of it all, he realized what his mistake was. And that's what I'm trying to get people not to make the mistake that he make. We make it a lot, but we still have time to finish our story better than his story had finished. We have time to finish our life better than he had finished his. And this is the advice he given to all of us now. Take my story, guys. I had all of this and I couldn't enjoy it. Even though God blessed me with it, I couldn't enjoy it. But this is the advice I can give to people. Let me read that over again. Ecclesiastes 12, 13 through 14. At the end of the book now here, what he said. He said, now all has been heard, all my ranting, all my frustration, all what I'm upset about. He said, here is the conclusion of the matter. Fear God and keep his commandments, for this is the duty of all mankind. Of all mankind, for God will bring every deed into judgment, including every hidden thing, whether it is good or evil. So, guys, we just saying, man, we got to follow this word. We got to follow this word. If you want enjoyment and fulfillment in life and prosperity and all the good things that come along with his life, let's look at the man who had it. Let's take his example. Let's listen to what he's saying here. He had it and he did not enjoy it because he did not do what God asked him to do. He did not follow the instructions. And you can have all the riches. You see those people who have a lot of stuff, but does not mean they're enjoying life. They could be like the wise King Solomon, have all of it and still in enjoying it. Right, guys? So the bottom line is what King Solomon is saying. To avoid that, man, say, fear God and keep his commandments, for this is the duty of all mankind, guys. This is the duty of all mankind. If we ain't doing that, our fulfillment, our happiness, everything is predicated on that. And our life is the happiness and the joy we get in our life is dependent on how much of those laws we follow. How much of God's laws we follow, they're going to depend on the quality of your life. Guys, in a nutshell, have a great, great day. But let's listen to this wise king here, a man who was the richest man in the world, and he's confessing he still didn't enjoy all the riches after he stopped following God and doing what he wanted to do. He didn't enjoy all of those riches, even though he was the richest man in the world. right? Because he stopped following God laws. So let's not us make that same mistake, right, guys? Don't let us make the mistake that he made, right? Whole book Ecclesiastes, he was just a bitter man ramping off, all was meaningless. And then he concluded telling us because he didn't do what he needed to do. All right, guys, I'll leave that there. Have a great day. We'll talk again on Wednesday. Okay, bye.